Fellow entrepreneurs and risk takers.
Are you ready for a show where you'll hear real,
behind the scenes stories from real business owners?
Look no further. Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
The show where we bring you the real, raw, and unplugged version of entrepreneurship.
There's no sugarcoating, no filters, just the vulnerable truth about the ups and downs of running a business,
being a parent, and how to move through all of those phases of your life while building something of significance.
From early mornings to late nights, from triumphs to setbacks, we cover it all.
So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to hear the truth about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
Live.
Dancing to the intro music. Welcome to Uncensored Entrepreneurs. It is Thursday, June 22nd. I almost forgot what day it was. Okay, Father's Day was this weekend. Did you guys have a good Father's Day?
Yeah.
Robert, did you have a good Father's Day?
Yeah. It was awesome because we had 3 generations just chilling at the pool, eating some good food, and just enjoying time with each other. So those are my favorite unplugged opportunities, you know?
Unplugged opportunities. What about you, Christina? Did you have a good Father's Day? Did you celebrate Ryan? Is she frozen?
She got frozen.
I think she's frozen.
But she's at least posing right.
At least she's not like...
picture.
Oh, there she goes. She's unfroze.
Okay.
I'm back.
All right.
Christina, did you have a good Father's Day? Did Ryan have a good Father's Day?
We took him to this really cool farm to table restaurant in the middle of the, I'd say the middle of the forest, but it's not. It's like little arroyo that has palm trees everywhere. It was so cool. The food was insane. We ate way too much. There was way too much food for us all. And then we stumbled into the petting. Yeah. They have 10 acres, and then you can go walk around and see, and they have tree houses you can stay in. It was phenomenal. It was really good.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Awesome.
We all need to go to, I think Uncensored Entrepreneurs needs to go to Cabo on location.
I thought we were going live next year.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying.
Let's go.
We need to go to Cabo with all of our significant others. Star, what about you? How was your Father's Day?
Nice. So my back is injured, my lower back, so I couldn't really go anywhere. But we have a new grandbaby in the family, a new grandson.
You're a grandma?
Yeah. So
grandma yet? I don't know if I can be a grandma yet.
Yes. So my husband is so excited because it's the first grandbaby that could take on his last name.
Yeah.
And my son went to see the baby. I couldn't go because of my back, but
is it a boy or a girl?
Boy,
yeah. Because I do understand that feeling. By the way, I mean, I'm not by no means am I minimizing the beautiful joy and experience of a granddaughter. I do have both, but I will say, when my grandson was there, I was like, yes, the name is the move.
Exactly.
I am not
feel for men.
I kind of want a grandbaby, but then again, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I used to run a daycare center for like 10 years when I was younger. And I used to love kids. I mean, I still kind of sort of love kids, and they like attract me. Like they always come to me like dogs do. Like always. Kids and dogs.
Girls are better, yeah.
Not girls.
No. I was saying that someone said girls are better. Yeah.
Oh, girls are better. But I was literally just talking about this to my guy the other day. I was like, you know what? I am so glad that I can't have kids because I am so done with the crying and all the stuff. My dog is like at that end stage. And I feel like I have a little 2-year-old where I have to change the diapers and take her out and clean up the messes and all that. And I'm like, I'm just glad that we do not have babies and we don't have grandbabies.
Hey, Tina, other than the diaper part, okay, dealing with people is sometimes harder than raising the babies. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no kidding.
Can we all relate to the fact that just sometimes, just people in general, and actually we'll be talking a little bit about that today because I know it's woven into my experience over the years, just owning a lot of brick and mortars before I became, more transitioned into like coaching and consulting. it was always an employee thing. It wasn't about product or services. It was dealing with like the people issues, right? Which is why now we're so equipped to being able to help people build that strong foundation, the mindset, the heart set. Like if you get the people part figured out, which really means just self, and I'm speaking and I'm pointing to me as well, right? Then all those other things are like so much easier. Yeah. So what are we going to be talking about today, by the way?
We're talk about emotional intelligence and how it's important in your business. But before we get into that, yesterday I put a post on social media, an engaging post. Like I have a list of 100 engaging posts that just gets a lot of engagement. It can be off the wall stuff. And yesterday I put a post that peanut butter goes with blank, and you can't say jelly. And I had a lot of good response. There's like 300 comments on there. There's about 300 comments on there.
We'll use that as an engagement post, everyone. There's your tip.
Use that as an engagement post because that's a good one. And I noticed this one comment on there from Miss Christina that says hamburger with mayonnaise and mustard and peanut butter.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, it's so good. Like, don't knock it until you try it.
That's it. Exactly.
Once you put it on there, once that is no ketchup, right? Just mayo, mustard, peanut butter. Once you do that, you'll never go back.
Well, I don't know about never go back, but once
you go peanut butter, you never go back.
You go peanut butter.
I put that on everything.
But, yeah, poor ketchup. Poor ketchup.
You're out ketchup
right now.
Just try it once.
But I will say that I went to a restaurant a few years ago that offered that, right? And I thought,
on a hamburger.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a stretch, right? But I love Thai food. I love peanut butter. Like I love things that have peanut oil. And I was like, I've got to try this. And to Christina's point, it was delicious. And what it really is, I think the factor in is because of that, like almost the salty experience tied in with the sweetness, all at the same time. And by the way, I didn't get to add to your post, but I'll just mention it right now. I grew up, my mother used to make me peanut butter and pickle sandwiches. Okay. Ooh. Now I don't know if she just did that because, maybe the time she was pregnant with my sister, right? Who knows?
The Elvis sandwich, or is that peanut butter and bananas?
No, I've had that too, but this is peanut butter with pickles, right? Like on your sandwich.
Dill
pickles.
Okay, well, let us know what you think.
You gotta try it. Okay.
With. Let us hear in the comments what peanut butter goes well with, and not say jelly. I want to hear what is the most off the wall, but please be classy. No bad comments.
Like, keep it PG, kids.
Keep it PG, children.
Okay. All right.
So that is a perfect segue, right? Because when we're talking about putting peanut butter on things that normally you wouldn't, think go together, it's thinking way outside the box, right? It's trying new things. And that's really what emotional intelligence is all about.
Peanut butter and marshmallow? Like marshmallow fluff?
They call it.
Tina, do you need a snack? Are you hungry?
Yeah. We're gonna take a quick sponsor break. Today's episode is brought to you by Jif and
crunchy peanut butter.
Adam's natural peanut butter. Anybody?
Christina, do you use crunchy peanut butter or creamy peanut butter?
Creamy, smooth, and no crunch.
I'm a crunchy peanut butter type of girl.
I am.
Okay, we gotta get serious, you guys. It's time to talk about why it's so important to have emotional intelligence in your business.
Yes.
And I will tell you, I'll start back in the day because I was a little spicy as a teenager, okay?
What?
Little chip on my shoulder. Shocking. Shocking.
I could never.
Okay.
So here's the deal. Like, I didn't realize that it was my crew of people that kept me spicy, right? And so for many years, before I opened my own salon, I worked in a salon, and I always seemed to be anxious, stressed, upset about something. Like my husband, when I finally quit the salon, he's like, thank God. Because he's like, every time I pick you up from work, you're crying or pissed off about something. And I recognize that a lot of the energy from people around me, like if you are not aware of how you behave and you just have a personality that's plopped on your body and your, you know, your soul, right? And you behave a certain way, you just act without being aware of it, you will continue to absorb the habits of the people around you. And so it takes conscious choice and conscious effort to grow. And a lot of the times our reactions, how we talk, how we gossip, how we do all these things as kids, we have to move through different phases of our life to realize, number one, that does not serve you in business, right? Have you ever had somebody a team member come to you in business and be like, so-and-so did this, meh, 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 meh. And then you're like, before you go, yeah, I know so-and-so does this, you're like, oh, tell me more, right? Like there's a difference between responding and reacting in business, and it takes skill and it takes development personally to overcome some of the things that maybe is your blind side that you don't see, to be able to have regular conversations where you keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
Does anybody would like to add to that?
But can you keep everybody happy?
Never.
Keep everybody happy though. When you have a team like that, I don't think you can keep everyone happy like that. Everyone's going to
not if you're talking about network marketing and like having like thousands of people on your team, no, you can't. But if you're building a team, you better damn well have people that you get along with and see things your way and are on your side and are fighting for your brand. Like, yeah. And you fire people that are not, and you fire quickly.
Exactly. Right? And you know, when you bring somebody into your team, they all have to have the same just like you said, the same energy, the same impact, the same emotional stuff that's going on. You always want to have that same passion, because if you don't, it's gonna affect your business hugely. And especially if you bring on somebody who has a negative attitude or anything like that, it's gonna almost like have that infection in your body that's going through it. It's gonna have that infection in your business, and it's gonna affect it huge. And you want to make sure that you keep the right people in your space and in your energy. And I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm not that old. I feel like I'm a little bit older than some of you. I have learned to keep my circle very, very small. And I don't let a lot of people in. You know, anybody who's negative or toxic or has any kind of energy, bad energy to them. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit better with feeling the energy from other people and allowing them or not allowing them into my life and into my circle and into my space.
Right. And I think, you know what, some of that may just, when you said with age in general, I think that's more about experiences, right? Because through those experiences, you start to qualify your circle, with some different standards.
Exactly.
My circle way back in the day was, if you were loud,
everybody.
Yeah, and you could, you like standing up on a table and being the loudest one in the room.
And if you could drink a bottle of tequila in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Now I avoid most of those people. So anyways, a lot has changed over time. But anyways, I did want to just read this to kind of set some basis, and we'll keep expanding on it. But I talked about a quote. Now it's been used by quite a few people. I had mentioned it in a post I did just earlier today to kind of, preemptive to this conversation. But Viktor Frankl was one of the original therapists that actually coined some of these words. And then Stephen Covey kind of, rewrote it his own way. And it's been used a lot across the world of our entrepreneur journey. But this one in particular, between stimulus and response, there is space. And it's in that space that our freedom and power to choose our response. It's our response that lies in our growth and our freedom. And so kind of just reflecting back on that, like between stimulus and response, there is a space like that's pretty powerful. To me, at least, that's a very powerful statement, because I know, just like most of you have stated, the way we responded to things, and that again comes with maturity. It comes with experience. It comes with developing your mindset, having kind of this broader purpose of things, that you start to realize it's how I react to anything that is going to either, one, benefit me in the long run, right? I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to, gain and attract other people within my circle. or more clients if we're just talking business, or better relationships with our spouse or people that we have relationships with in general. It's how we react. And can we all at least agree, like when we think back in time, how we've made some pretty poor choices and how we responded to some of those?
I've made any bad choices in my life. Let me see.
I think I got a lesson early on. One of my very first business courses in college, the professor was like, when you're working in the corporate world and you get an email and you're like, you don't like what the person has said, or there's some sort of issue happening in the office, to really wait to respond to that email, because when you respond in that moment, you lash out, you may say the wrong things. And I know that's a small little tip, but that stuck with me for life. And so anytime I was really upset with an employee or something was happening in the workspace, I wouldn't respond right away, because I want to make sure that I am using my emotional intelligence and selecting the right words to communicate with those people. Now, there are so many people who do lack emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is 4 times more important than, the productivity that you bring to the workspace from your work experience. And I'll tell you this because I know Christina was like, oh, we fire the people that don't work with us, don't work well, and we're not getting along. And these people will definitely like mess with your head and your space, because I've been there, Christina. But sometimes they don't have emotional intelligence. And so they're lashing out in the workplace at you as the boss. I've had people disrespect me. A lot of gossiping amongst, because I have a women's business. So when we had the lash salon, that's the most number of people that I managed. I think I had over.
I used to work with a lot of men, and I feel like they were more gossipy than any woman that I've ever been with. I'm like, you guys gossip more than chicks.
Yes, but the problem with that is that we can't, when you're running like a brick and mortar, you can't just fire people. I mean, obviously if they do something really crazy like theft or whatever, yeah, you have to. But sometimes you have to take that time to find a new employee. And what I find is a lot of the younger folks, and no offense to age, but like this group of people right now, they're not really wanting to go into the workspace. They want to work online and they want to do these things. And so it's really hard to find those positions, fill those positions as quickly. And yeah, I mean, it's a big issue for a lot of people. Unfortunately, the people who do have emotional intelligence, they are more successful. And that's why we are business owners.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, so what you just described about waiting to respond to the email, my mom taught me in high school, because I was bullied a lot in high school. And so like, I would just want to rage. And she's like, nope, 24-hour rule. She's like, go write what you want to say, right? Like, go write it out, get it out of your system. And then go back in 24 hours. Sometimes it was 48 or 72. And like, go back and then take the emotion out of it. What are the facts, right? Like, because a lot of the time we respond with emotion and it's so charged. But if we go back 2 days later, we're like, oh, why are you so spicy about that? Like, it really wasn't a big deal. Maybe I was in a mood. Maybe something else had happened. Like maybe, I was rushing around. I didn't have time to deal with that one situation, and that lack of patience and time, created another ripple effect. So where's my hand in this? Like what responsibility do I need to take here? Like you're saying, it's not just their responsibility, it's our responsibility. And I remember when I was first a new entrepreneur and running a big team, I wanted to help everybody. So I would like burn myself out trying to help everybody and like doing everything for everyone. And I learned very quickly, and this is part of emotional intelligence, is like you learn who to work with and you give people homework and see if they do it and come back, right? And so you start to realize like some people just want to talk to you and some people just want to talk and they don't actually want to have your opinion, nor do they apply it. And so when I would give advice to somebody, and like I know you guys can relate to this, like in a coaching space or whatever, you give advice to somebody and then they come back, they're like, so I didn't do this and I did this. Why did you ask me in the first place then? Now you've got another issue and that's on you now because you didn't do this. So like you learn where to spend your time and energy. And that is a huge piece of entrepreneurship, because you could like waste so much time every single day moving around trying to put out fires, when if you just focused on a few key leadership people or you focused on where you truly made a difference in your business, you could turn out all that noise, right?
Wow, that's so true. And, we talk about this in other episodes and just in general offline, the fact that most of us just innately are servants, right? We naturally want to serve. And that also means a lot of times we're giving up a lot of free time, advice, energy, all these things to help. But you're absolutely right, Christina, because, you know, I found, and this happened to Kelly and I when we built some pretty big organizations over the years, even just together, that those that we had to kind of drag into the process, hold their hand through the whole thing. Now, I'm not saying that people don't need guidance and leadership. That's totally different. But those that you actually have to kind of drag into that space throughout the entire process. And then when you give them that information, you're continuously like you're behind them, still kind of pushing them up the hill. You'll find that, you know, 95% of the time you'll be doing that forever.
Yeah.
And so it's this fine line between, again, adopting your own just, you know, emotions and how you deal with something, but let alone when you're taking on clients or you're, you know, in any type of leadership, whether it's in business for yourself or in the corporate world, it's knowing when you can draw that line. And sometimes you just have to let go, right? You can only take on so much. And that is all part of that growth when it comes to emotional intelligence.
When you start off a business, you want anybody and everybody, right? Like you're like any client, I just want to get paid.
I want them all. I want to make everyone happy, right?
Everybody. And then you get to this point where you're like, you know what? I can pick and choose who I want to work with now. I don't think you and I are a good fit. I know your $10,000 is really good, but I don't think we're a good fit. And that picking and choosing, that's when you are in that business. You're in that point of your business where you're like, I made it. When you get to pick and choose who you want to work with and who you don't. So when is that fine line? When is that time where you cut those people off that are just like those low-hanging fruit people?
You know, it's kind of interesting. When I think of it, I do want to step back just a moment. Christina, I believe you mentioned something about leadership, right? Developing leaders. Yeah. That in itself is so key in that process, Tina. As you and I and Star and Christina can relate, that being able to develop other leaders, even if it's the beginning stages of their own experience and career, can actually help you still guide some of this low-hanging fruit that we talk about, right? Yeah. And so I've always looked at it kind of like as this waterfall effect. You know, there was times in my life where it was like, if we weren't aligned with each other, I would cut it off. And I realized, you know, there's still individuals that they just need some guidance, maybe just a little bit, maybe quite honestly, like maybe we can't relate, right? We talked about that before. Maybe I'm at an 8 in my particular experience and they're at a 1. And maybe just there's a gap there. And so now if I can team them up, if I can develop a 3 or a 4 that can work really closely with them, maybe there's some more, you know, relatable experiences there. And it's the same thing with whether we're talking about gender, we're talking about past experiences, whatever it may be, people relate to others in different ways. And so maybe I can't serve everyone, but if I'm developing enough people that can serve everyone, that's the key, at least in my experience in business.
And I think like the proof is in the pudding, right? Like I remember thinking, okay, I can turn anybody into a leader. Like that was my ego talking, I think. And you know, like I can help them become a leader. It's totally fine. Like, and I remember this really important lesson that Larry Thompson taught me. And he said, look, we get into this industry, we say, anybody can do it. Anybody can build this. Anybody can do that. And he's like, that isn't the case. He's like, some people are only capable of this far. Yes. And he's like, Christina, if you pay attention, you'll see it immediately and you'll know where to stop, right? Like you'll know, I think there are people that I've had in my life that I've had to just move forward without. And it's not like, I'm like, hey, catch up, let's do this together, right? But like, I've had to move forward without because I'm like, this is the capacity that you have. You're showing me that you're not learning new skills. You're showing me that you're not doing the work to develop as a leader. And so Brenda, this is a great question. Can you be a leader and not have the attention? And yes, you can act as if you are a leader, but part of leadership, I would highly recommend the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I would highly recommend that book. I'm just like recommending books every week, eh? Readers out of you guys.
Did you hear her candidate come out? Eh?
Did I say A? Anyways, I have it like sitting right here on my desk. And part of that, Brenda, is you you have influence when you lead, or you grow a community so you have influence.
Right.
And you build that influence by being of service and of value to people. Leaders lead before anybody asks them to. They do the unpopular before anybody does it first, right? And so they're developing new systems. They're helping people, if it's not working, well, maybe we need to tweak it this way or do it this way, or maybe we need to try again, right? We're constantly developing new systems to help people, but you have to be self-motivated and you have to be the person that does it first to gain the attention, right?
Yes, absolutely. The credibility, right? Just being able to kind of walk that path. But you're right. Brenda had mentioned, about not having the attention. The attention comes. It doesn't necessarily have to be there, right? As far as in that experience, I develop leaders to kind of help along that process. And at the end of the day, that's the goal. We talked about it again when it comes to like imposter syndrome. And I know I just kind of layer that back in, but it's one of the biggest things. Every single client that I talk to, can you relate, has had or experienced some form of imposter syndrome. We ourselves have as well. And so I talk about it a lot because that is what happens. We sit there and we're either new in an experience and we're kind of looking at, if I could only create a funnel like this person, or if I could only deliver content or have, 1 million followers like Star Cod, like if I could
90,000 people in a Facebook.
Yeah. If I could have these things, right? But that will creep in on you. And so kind of live in your moment, in your space. And I always say that even if you've decided to like take a step forward in anything, just by taking action, you already hold some form of leadership for those that are still sitting on the bench trying to figure things out. Yeah. And so that to me, leadership comes in all different forms. It doesn't have to be, those that have had 10 years of experience plus whatever it may be. Leadership is you having the willingness, you having some type of experience that you can share with those that are just still trying to figure things out.
And you know what? So many people are at different levels, right? Like you bring people on, network marketing or as a coach or anything. Everybody has different goals. Some people, they just want to make an extra $500, to pay for, school or whatever. Some people want to replace their income. Some people want to retire their husband, so you got to find out their goals and learn to work with them and where they're at, and then adjust who you are to work with them.
So I want to pose just one quick thing and then just throw it out to the group, throw it out to anyone that's joining in on any of our social media platforms that want to ask questions. But one thing, when we talk about emotional intelligence, right? We think about, again, it's that reaction, the reaction to something that's actually happening to us in that space. I want to bring this up because that is actually one of the pivoting points on whether we want to go forward in our career or become an entrepreneur or go in business for ourselves. And those that feel, again, because of some type of reaction, I'm not worthy. I can't accept, the no's, the rejection, whatever it may be. Like that's a big, big thing. So when we think about that, do you have any pointers or things you want to discuss in regards to a time in your life, in your career, when you almost like called it quits because of, how you were feeling and your reaction to that? And then what helped you actually get through that?
Star, you can go. I'm just kidding because I feel like you had something to add before we had that question. So
no, but I don't want to go off topic. I think it's definitely easy to get into that space sometimes that you just want to quit when something really drastic happens in the business. For me anyways, that might be where I have that feeling come up sometimes, or if I'm not super excited. So for me personally, it's like, okay, number one, instead of like getting so emotional, like my first audit by the IRS, I have to tell you, like I was so emotional.
Oh my gosh, yes. That'll ruin anybody's day, quite honestly.
And I don't know, like it really affected my emotional state for like a matter of 60 days. It was insane. And now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that was like so petty and so minor, right? So sometimes when you're going through things that seem very difficult, just kind of staying through the course and trying to figure out a way to get over these things so that you can stay in business and keep progressing. And really going back to your why, like, why is it that you started this business? How is this business beneficial to you? And then going back to a point that Christina made, maybe the business is not beneficial to you. Just like people who are negative around you, if the business is really taking you down emotionally, like in a spiraling manner, maybe it's not something you should work on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
absolutely. Anyone else want to add on that? And I'm going to come back around to Brenda's comment in a moment, but anyone else want to add or expand on that?
When I went through all of my stuff about 4 years ago, I not only wanted to give up on life, but I wanted to get like everything, like business and everything, because when you have something like that so huge happen to you, you're just like, why am I doing this? Why? Like, I'm just working my ass off and I'm not doing anything. I'm like not, making a difference in the world. Or you think that that imposter syndrome starts coming up, Or if you have a client that says, you know what, I just don't want to work with you anymore. I just don't feel like we're a good fit. You're like, wait, what? Is it me? Is it, you start going through all of these things. But when you go through something like that, like Star says, and you start going down that rabbit hole, like, I feel like when you have that negative stuff, more negative things start happening. It's so hard to like reach for this like one positive thing that's in your life. And it's so hard to reach for that.
I want to highlight what Star said, because this is really important. So she said, when I look back on it, it wasn't really a big deal, but when you are going through it, you want to die. Like, well, that's what I interpreted or interpreted what you said. And so hindsight is always 20/20. And what I realized in life after a ton of counseling, like I was bullied from grade 2 until I graduated, and it was one of those things that like every time there was conflict, every time somebody was mean to me, I would like go back to that. I had PTSD and I didn't know I had PTSD until I was 32, because I thought that was only for like Army vets and first responders. Mm-hmm. So I operated in this way that I wasn't aware of how it was affecting me. And so when I left my salon and started my own business, I had the salon owner call all of my clients and offer them free services. Mm. Right. And I was just like, I took it as a hit. Like, this is so personal. Well, it's business. And she was trying to save her business. Right. So like, I can see it differently now, but it made me stronger. It made me realize I have to handle this in a different way. When I left one of my network marketing companies to go to another company, corporate did a Zoom with other leaders and lied and said I got paid. I was illegally cross recruiting. I was being sued. Corporate did that. Right. And so like, I wanted to crawl into a hole and die, because I left with integrity and said nothing except for like 5 leaders that were friends of mine. Right. And so like, people are going to put these situations in front of you that maybe are not even your fault. And of course, you start to realize that your influence is what actually is something that threatens other people around you, because when you start to make decisions and it takes away from their paycheck or takes away from their attention, then all of a sudden you are the threat. And so what I want to tell you is like, so the piece of the salon, the piece of leaving network marketing, which was horrible. I didn't want to get out of bed for 2 weeks. Like, it was like really hard for me, for people not to like me, because I'd done so much to help them and I didn't understand why people would ever treat me that way. Then moving to Mexico. I'm just telling you these little steps that have made me stronger along the way. I had a viral video and there were like thousands of comments that were like, we hate you, gringo, go home. We don't want you here. The cartel are going to kill you and your family. Like, it was horrible, because the mob of I call them the woke mob online, right? They come after you and you're like, is this actually real? So in those situations, guess what? I called in backup. I didn't go crawl into bed and die. I didn't quit what I was doing. I called my therapist. I said, I need help. I need you to support me and release this. I need you to protect me. I need you to do everything that you can to help me move through this and have difficult conversations with people that don't deserve my time, but are worthy of a conversation. Right. And so it's bringing in a team of people that will help you and will support you in those moments and help you move through them, because you don't have to go at them alone. And so often we think, I'm just not going to do it. I'm never going to show up. I don't want to show up on social media. This was terrible. Maybe they're going to hurt my family. Yes. It's not true. So what is true to you? And that's the whole piece of emotional intelligence is like, nobody gets to decide who you are. Nobody except for you. And all that matters is how you feel about yourself. And if that's not the most integral thing, or you've had a conversation that was out of integrity, right? And you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Then learn from it. Don't do it again. right? Like
Yes.
these are moments of growth. And so when these things happen to you, they're actually happening for you, and they're giving you an opportunity to grow strength in them, right? Like you don't go to pray to God and say, I wish I was more courageous. I wish I was braver. God is going to put in front of you a situation that allows you to step into a role of being brave or courageous.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm sorry. I'm only laughing because it's so true. You know, you pray for courage.
Yeah.
And now you're faced with a lion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like, wait a minute, this isn't what I asked for. I asked for courage.
You got to be very specific with God.
Yeah. But that is so true. And I just want to say, like, mindset. We talk about this a lot. Emotional intelligence hugely connected to mindset. But in mindset in general, we think that if you develop a strong mindset, that you're you're invincible. You no longer are faced with these conflicts. But that isn't true at all. As if it, quite honestly, as Brenda said, when you're in the light, right? What did she say? She says, you're a threat when you're in the light. Yep. Actually, when you have a strong mindset and a positive attitude, you'll be attacked even harder.
That's when Satan starts attacking you even more, is when right before you're about to like hit the gold mine, or right before you're in that, oh my God, everything's going perfectly. Yes. That's when Satan tries to get in. And
she's having that ability
when you're light.
Right. Having the ability, the tools, and the mindset to be able to push through that conflict, and then use that experience, right, to actually strengthen the tools and the everything that you're offering today. So I do want to just come.
These comments here. The stories of your mind tells you mindset is so important. It is, and you have to make sure that you stay in that positive mindset. Years ago, I somebody told me that the stories of your mind become the stories of your life. And I so amazingly know that is the truth, because if you do not keep your mindset in that positive way, you can still go down that rabbit hole. And it's so easy to stay there. And it's even easier to just stay there and not ever get out. Like it's like the hardest thing ever to like get out of that pit.
It is. It's so true. I just want to circle back around to this. I had it up earlier and I brought it down based on the conversation. But Brenda said, what if you don't have goals and you just love what you do, right? And I just want to mention one thing, because it was part of my coaching call yesterday with a group of individuals where we were really collaborating, almost, just kind of having this mastermind. And I'll give credit to, if anyone knows, Frederick Bussey. He's an ATL guy. So he's down there, and he brought this up. He talked about the difference between goals and mission. Like the mission never changes, Brenda. And so like, keep that in mind. We get hung up so often. Goals change rapidly. So if you don't have a set of goals, goals are important, right? They're like steps to get towards, but the mission at the end of the day, as long as you have a mission, meaning that, you just stated it, you love what you do. So it's the feeling of whatever it is that you're doing. It's your passion. It's your purpose. Like that's your alignment. That's the mission. And maybe at the end of the day, it's, maybe I can bring others into whatever this field is or whatever my experience is. And in doing that, that will help you develop the goal. So kind of work backwards. They always say, keep the end in mind and kind of work backwards. The mission never changes. Goals often do, because we constantly pivot and kind of change and adapt along the way. But I just wanted to throw that out there, because we just discussed this yesterday, and I really like that spin on it, because we get hung up on, oh my gosh, I didn't accomplish X, Y, Z. And so it goes back to that emotional intelligence. Now I'm a failure. Now I'm not meeting my expectations, and I'm stuck in a rut, right?
Well, and that's when you take your goals and you readjust them.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm not going to hit 7 figures this year, but I am going to hit, 6.5.
But also who's to say, if she loves her job, Brenda, if you love your job and it is your soul's purpose, and you're making enough money to pay your bills, you get to spend time with your family, like maybe you don't need higher goals. Maybe where you're like, some people, and I'm not like saying Brenda, but like some people I heard Joe Rogan say this, so I'm saying it, but he's like, some people just enjoy hiking. Like that brings them joy. They don't need massive goals every single year. They don't need to hit 6 figures and $500,000 and $1 million. Like not everybody is wired like us. Not everybody thinks that way. And like, we're not here to diminish anything that anybody is doing. No. If you are happy with what you do, you have enough money in the bank to pay for your lifestyle and to do the things that you love, that's good. And you do what you love, like that's great.
Yes.
So
and I wanted to talk about what Jennifer's mentioning too. I don't know if you're going to read that, Robert, but she says, I've got imposter syndrome at the moment. I've worked 15 years as a great counselor. I'm studying self-sabotage and hypnotherapy and just struggling with feeling good enough. So emotional intelligence is something that you work at every single day. So all of the tips that we've been sharing today, listen back to this and implement them. So when you have those negative thoughts in your mind, you need to immediately shift them, Jennifer, into positive thoughts. And that's part of developing your emotional intelligence, is having the ability to do that. We all get these negative thoughts that creep up on us, but if you stay in that space, it's definitely not helpful for us. So that's definitely one thing that I wanted to mention there too, is like being able to shift out of those thoughts, Jennifer, on a daily basis.
Yeah. That is
an accountability partner is perfect
too,
there
right?
you go.
It's
Nailed
perfect
it, yes.
for that. Having an accountability partner saying, listen, I am struggling. I am thinking that I'm not good enough. I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that. And then that strong accountability partner is like, listen, what are you doing? When's the last time you wrote your gratitude? When's the last time you listened to a positive podcast? When's the last, and we get you back on track. And that's the thing, that you want to have that accountability partner to keep you on track, so that way you're not going down that self-sabotage road.
Yeah, absolutely. I always talk about the fact that one of the analogies I mentioned is that an auto mechanic, right? They typically drive the worst vehicle around. It's held together by duct tape. And the reason why I say that is they spend so much time focusing and working on other people's vehicles that they tend to kind of neglect their own. And so, Jennifer, the fact that you're even saying 15 years as a great counselor, studying self-sabotage, hypnotherapy, just struggling with feeling good enough, that is so true. I mean, quite honestly, you're probably even more prone to having these moments where you're struggling and you feel like you're stuck in this rut. And so, once again, we are our own worst coaches. Like we ourselves are our own worst coaches. Every coach that's on this platform and every coach that I've ever connected with, most of them that are truly engaged, they have other people they look up to. They have other coaches. They have circles of influence and people that they can, as you said, accountability partners. Even us here, right? Just tying into those people that are going to help kind of uplift you and not tear you down, and those that you can relate to. So again, I just want to throw that out there, that it's so easy. I'll share this experience without too many details, but 3 years ago, I was reaching the kind of pinnacle of my coaching career. Everything was going well. I was booked for a whole year across stages across the United States. I had multiple books launching. I mean, just everything was going great. And I had like just a major loss in life. And I lost a lot of my confidence, my mindset. And so here I am, right? Mr. Positivity, the branding guru, right? The individual that constantly tries to build up other mindset and heart sets. And I found myself in that same rut. And it was truly because when you're in that experience, you sometimes feel like you're not worthy. When you're broken, you're not worthy to be able to help somebody else through their problem. But the fact of the matter is, because you're broken and you've acknowledged it, and you realize that there's tools and there's ways of you to be able to fight through that experience in itself makes you actually more qualified to be an amazing counselor or coach.
And you know what? I mean, Robert, you and I both have had the same kind of experience 3 or 4 years ago. We've talked about it many times. Somebody told me, and I think I've shared this with you guys many times, but somebody told me, Tina, you're like a glow stick. You had to be almost broken in order for you to shine brightly. So if you think about a glow stick, you have to pop it, almost break it in half and shake it up in order for it to shine bright. And it's funny because I am doing a collaboration book right now called Be a Glow Stick Girl. And all of these amazing stories of how women had to be almost broken in order for them to shine brightly, turning that trial into triumph. And, you always want to say, I wish I would have never gone through it. I wish I would have never done this. I wish I would have never done that. But if you never did it, you wouldn't be who you are today.
Empathy is different, right? When you have to go through something. I remember before, and like I'm just gonna be transparent. Before having a miscarriage, I didn't have the empathy that was equivalent to what it should have been with other women. I didn't know what it was like. I didn't know the emotional trauma. I was just like, oh, that sounds bad.
Yeah.
You know, and that was really that was the connection, because there was such a disconnect.
Just try again. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You know, and so once you've been through, it is your broken moments that you come from the ashes and gather your strength so that you can help other people. And there are times that I've sat down and I've saw me and somebody else, saw tears streaming down their face, and I'm like, I know, I've been there. I see you. I see you for everything that you are, because I've been there. And I'm telling you, you get to come out the other side and be like this.
Yeah.
And those are the things that qualify you. They are the hardest to overcome. And many people will run the other direction. Have you ever known that you need to have a conversation, you really disagree with somebody on your team, or disagree with a friend or a family member, you need to have a conversation and you just don't have it? You just kind of avoid it, right? And so for many years in my life, I avoided really hard conversations because I didn't want to upset people. I didn't want to make them wrong. I didn't want to have to be right. I didn't know how to have the conversation. Until one day I call my counselor. I'm like, I need to have this conversation, and I literally need you to walk me through it, because I don't want to hurt somebody else in the process. And my trauma is rearing its ugly head. So you have to help me learn the language, learn how to show up, so that I can be this person for somebody else while still healing from mine. Right. And I think having that foresight now, it was just that first, oh, I got to get over the hump and have that conversation. Now I race to those conversations. I'm like, we need to talk about this today. We need to talk about this right now. This is going to be uncomfortable for a second, but now I've learned how to have those and move through it. Because what happens in the process when you don't have the confidence, the courage, by the way, you may need to use a 24-hour rule or the 48-hour rule before you have the conversation. Okay. That's what needs to happen.
Hour rule before you go off.
Right. Ooh, center yourself, right? And know what you want to say. And you need to come across calmly. And I always know that somebody is being triggered by their trauma when they accelerate, when they start to spin things up and accelerate and blame other people, and this is getting crazy, right? And it's just okay, but you are only responsible for your own feelings. You are not responsible for how anybody else behaves. And so when you learn that, you realize, oh gosh, this is just practice every time. This is just me getting better every time. Okay, could have done that, could have said this differently, but all I do now is run towards those challenges, because I'm going to be uncomfortable for 90 seconds, and then we're going to get through it, and I'm going to learn something in the process. So if you can start looking at life that way, in that when all these hard things show up, they're there to help you learn and grow, it makes it a little bit less uncomfortable when you have to go and do it.
Yeah, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Or at least we say it all the time, right?
At least embracing those situations, right? So, yeah.
Star, what do you think about putting yourself out there like that?
Yeah, I don't race to those conversations.
I don't really race to them.
But when it comes to emotional intelligence, though, being able to, like we said, process your thoughts, know what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, your tone, all of that is so important in having these serious conversations with people, or if there's some sort of a conflict. So definitely. And also I wanted to tap into the empathy piece as well, because like Christina was saying, we really don't know what a person is going through, why they said something that they've said, or why they're doing what they do. So it's very important as you work on your emotional intelligence is to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and really understand their path, because that definitely is not your journey. And so your response needs to be able to, the way you respond to them, you need to be able to take into consideration something that they've gone through or the lifestyle that they currently live.
Wow.
I like how you said that, because it is so true. How you don't know what people are going through. You don't know why they did the way they did, why they're rushing. I'm very bad road rage.
What? I can't imagine that.
So when people cut me off, Puerto Rican in me goes off really quick. But you don't know, they could be rushing to the hospital or rushing to this, or something could be really happening for them to be driving the way they do. And so I need to work on my road.
Quite honestly, maybe your reaction is helping them with their emotional intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
So, how they respond to you. but that's really, I joke about that, but that ripple effect is exactly what happens in this world, right? And so again, just knowing that, number one, you're not alone, and whatever experience that you are experiencing, and we all have a different walk, a different journey. Just like we mentioned earlier, when you talk about success, we all have a different definition of it, right? Well, the same exact thing when it comes to wounds and loss, right? To one person, a loss could just be like a pet. It could be a loved one, a grandmother. It could be, the loss could be something I say minor, but in my world, it would be minor. The loss could be like, I just lost $1,000 from my bank account, right? That could be absolutely devastating to others in this world, where maybe we're equipped to kind of move past that. And so we have to be sensitive to those things. So emotional intelligence isn't just how you deal with your shit. Okay. I'll just put it out there. It's the best way I could say it, but it's actually being able to, as you said, Star, just having empathy and how you actually help and approach others. And I think it's those experiences that we embrace and the storms that we like push through that allow us to really build that EQ, right? To have that empathy and go, wow, like now in these last few years, I can go, when a client, I'm so much more relatable to sometimes certain loss in their life or whatever it may be. And loss comes in all different forms. Christine, I think you opened up in the very beginning and talked about PTSD, right? Obviously, being a vet, I myself have experienced that along with many other colleagues. And yet, I will say that every single person I've ever met, every client I've ever helped through any type of thing, or a family member or a friend, we all have some form of underlying PTSD. We're only one trigger away from, this being an issue in our lives and a roadblock, but it's being equipped to have the tools, the ability, and having the community and the support to kind of push through these things. So with every person on here, with all the things you're thinking about, continue to kind of get around the campfire and to continue to just know that, I'm not alone. I'm not stuck in this moment. Life is worth living, right? And that's a whole nother issue we could talk about at some point. But a lot has happened in these last few years. A lot of wounds have been, uncovered, right?
And how you show up matters, right? Like how you personally show up to conversations matter. And if you show up expecting the best out of somebody, not expecting the worst, you're looking for the silver lining and to compliment them and, help them move through a challenge, and you have learned to get curious about certain conversations, then it changes the whole energy of the conversation. And, I think what you said about PTSD is really important. I know, I now have come to recognize that when I go from here to about a 10 and get angry, oh wait, I've been triggered by something, right? Like when my voice gets very loud in the house.
Let me find out what that was. What was it?
That's right. It's time to hey, okay, Ryan, I understand that this is not about what we're actually discussing right now. There's something that's really bothering me. I'm going to step away from this. I'm going to take a minute to meditate or process or do some journaling and figure out what it is that at the root of this, why I'm upset about it. And then I'm going to come back and we can have a bigger discussion.
Now, what does Ryan say when you say stuff like that?
He just wants to talk it out right away. He wants to fix it right away. He's like, no, let's just I'm like, no, because I'm going to say something I don't want.
What do you need? What you need me to do? I want to fix it.
We don't go to bed angry. We don't like that. I never want to go to bed angry. And he's my person. He is my partner. He's everything to me. And of course we're going to have our differences and we're going to have things that we get frustrated with. And I'm sure he's frustrated with me a lot of the time. He just handles it better than I do because he doesn't have the same triggers that I do. But when you learn to recognize them in yourself, again, you take absolute ownership of those, you figure it out, and each process again, I figured this out about me. This is something that I didn't see coming up. And you can start to change that behaviors and then recognize it in others and be like, I remember when I felt that way. Yeah, I can help you with that.
So with all that being said, with all this stuff that we've given you, all these tips and stuff, one thing that I want to leave with you guys is for me, being the gratitude specialist, I would say just to pay it forward. You never know what people are going through. So, just a smile, I sometimes be just smiling at somebody will change the way that they are throughout their day, or buying somebody a cup of coffee, or letting somebody cut you off in traffic in Atlanta at 25. Even though, it makes me doing those kinds of things, because you never know. So put yourself in those shoes. Robert, what do you want to like leave with everybody?
Whew, wow, there's a lot actually with what you ended with there, Christina. And I think that we'll actually highlight that as a topic in the future because it's a really big thing. When I think of emotional intelligence with everything that we've discussed today, the partner thing, and when I say partner, that's how we deal with people, whether it's our spouse, whether it's friends, whether it's business relationships. It's understanding that we all have different personalities, right? I mean, and if you've never done any type of personality tests, please go ahead and do. I can recommend some fantastic ones. But like my wife and I don't know if she's still in, but hopefully this helps other couples. The fact of the matter is, it wasn't until we were in a broken state that we had to realize we operate differently. Yeah. And sometimes, like when you walk into a relationship or a marriage, you're like, yeah, she's a little different than me, or I'm the aggressive one, she's the timid one, like whatever. But at the end of the day, you start to realize the way that we operate is different. So she's going to respond based on my response and vice versa. And so again, that all comes with time. It comes with communication, empathy. And so I would say understand that, like, through your emotional intelligence, as you're trying to develop your own and as you're working with others, listen and hear other people's viewpoint, right? I think this country as a whole, and we won't talk about that right now, but is broken. It's in a broken state because too many people want to tell others how they should think and how they should feel. Yeah. And if we just took a little bit more time to sit and talk, you'll actually find that you have more in common than you actually have in difference. But we want to focus on the difference, right? That's what stirs us up. So I'm just going to throw that out there is, understand that everyone thinks and acts and lives and breathes differently.
Yeah. Star, what about you? What do you want to leave with?
Yeah, I just want to say that emotional intelligence is not a topic that you hear a lot of people talking about. And I think it's very important that this is something that we all work on and that you take very seriously, because the end result of emotional intelligence and mastering the ability to have empathy and self-regulate yourself, all of the amazing things that we talked about, is happiness. Okay, so there's no point in running a business if you're not happy. There's no point in being in a marriage if you're not happy. So definitely work on this so that you have success, but you also have happiness.
Yeah. I like that. And everybody's definition of happiness is different.
Definitely.
And many times you'll find that 50% of your unhappiness is because you're unhappy with yourself and your own performance. So it isn't always about the person across the table, right? Yeah. I mean, you work on self first, and you'll find that your relationship with everyone gets better.
I think that's
why I need the timeout, right? Because if I don't have that timeout, then I'm like, oh, it's definitely your fault.
Right, but that's true. That is so true.
It's usually not. It's usually my fault, right?
No, but that's what I mean. It's so true that we think that way. That's our reaction, right? If you don't sit back and you breathe a little bit. So true.
Well, because we see the world through our lens, right? We all have a lens, and that like filter that we see it through is our life experience, who we are, our personality on top of that, our, whatever we've gone through with our family and all that kind of stuff. And so we see it from our perspective, and we can't expect other people to have the exact same perspective because none of us have been raised the same way. None of us have had the same life experiences. Exactly. So I just encourage people to get really curious when there are times of conflict, when there are, sticky situations. Instead of being angry, like maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe you just need to be calm and ask different questions and figure out, hey, where was your mindset? Because even if it was a mistake, or even if it was something that you disagree on, yes, having the perspective and having the patience to listen and make somebody else feel heard. If you can do that to the people around you and they actually feel heard, they'll continue to open up bigger conversations with you. Because a lot of the time we have conversations and all you're thinking about, I mean, we're doing it right now, is thinking of like, what am I going to say next, instead of listening to the person that's actually speaking. And so I think, when we talk about this topic, you're right, Star, it's definitely not a topic that is openly discussed a lot of the time, because it's something that is constantly in motion. Right? It's something that is you're constantly working on. It's a muscle, like at the gym. It's something that you'll do until the day that you die. Like, I want to be monk-like maybe by the time I die, and like nothing bothers me and it just bounces off, and I like look like a little glowing angel all the time because nothing bothers me.
You do look like a glowing angel.
You know, so anyways, that's my 2 cents. And I appreciate you guys having this conversation because I think it's an important one. And I love that we all have these different perspectives and are able to come here and share that with those of you that are watching today. So first of all, thank you so much for coming to watch today, you guys. It's been an incredible hour. We'll be back again next Thursday with you and have another really great topic to discuss and hopefully give you some behind the scenes, uncensored information on how we've become successful entrepreneurs and how we've overcome the challenges that many of you are facing and don't think that is normal, but truly it really is. And we're here to help.
So
yes.
true.
We will
Very
see you guys
grateful for
next
all of you.
Thursday.
You bet.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now,
See you
guys.
1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Fellow entrepreneurs and risk takers.
Are you ready for a show where you'll hear real
Behind the scenes stories from real business owners.
Look no further. Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
The show where we bring you the real, raw, and unplugged version of entrepreneurship.
There's no sugarcoating, no filters, just the vulnerable truth about the ups and downs of running a business,
Being a parent, and how to move through all of those phases of your life while building something of significance.
From early mornings to late nights, from triumphs to setbacks, we cover it all.
So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to hear the truth about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur.
Welcome.
welcome,
Welcome to the Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
entrepreneurs.